north and south, the east and west. The condition of the labourers in Suffolk and Norfolk corresponds with that of Devonshire, Hampshire, and Sussex. Wages are as low in Dorsetshire and Oxfordshire as in Kent and Surrey, Buckinghamshire, and Cambridgeshire. One especially barbaric cruelty against the working class is embodied in the game laws, which are more stringent than in any other country, while the game is plentiful beyond all conception. The English peasant who, according to the Old English custom and tradition, sees in poaching only a natural and noble expression of courage and daring, is stimulated still further by the contrast between his own poverty and the cartel lest not replace it of the lord, who preserves thousands of hares and game birds for his private enjoyment. The labourer lays snares, or shoots here and there a piece of game. It does not injure the landlord as a matter of fact, for he has a vast superfluity, and it brings the poacher a meal for himself, and his starving family. But if he is caught he goes to jail, and for a second offence receives at the least 7 years' transportation. From the severity of these laws arise the frequent bloody conflicts with the gamekeepers, which lead to a number of murders every year. Hence the post of gamekeeper is not only dangerous, but of ill repute and despised. Last year, in 2 cases, gamekeepers shot themselves, rather than continue their work. Such is the moderate price at which the landed aristocracy purchases the noble sport of shooting, but what does it matter to the lords of the soil? Whether 1 or 2 more or less of the surplus live, or die matters nothing, and even if in consequence of the game laws half the surplus population could be put out of the way, it would be all the better for the other half according to the philanthropy of the English landlords. Although the conditions of life in the country, the isolated dwellings, the stability of the surroundings and occupations, and consequently of the thoughts, are decidedly unfavourable to all development, yet poverty and want bear their fruits even here. The manufacturing and mining proletariat emerged early from the first stage of resistance to our social order, the direct rebellion of the individual by the perpetration of crime, but the peasants are still in this stage at the present time. Their favourite method of social warfare is incendiarism. In the winter which followed the Revolution of July, in 1830–31, these incendiarisms first became general. Disturbances had taken place, and the whole region of Sussex and the adjacent counties has been brought into a state of excitement in October, in consequence of an increase of the coast guard which made smuggling much more difficult, and ruined the coast in the words of a farmer, changes in the poor law, low wages, and the introduction of machinery. In the winter the farmers' hay and corn stacks were burnt in the fields, and the very barns and stables under their windows. Nearly every night a couple of such fires blazed up, and spread terror among the farmers and landlords. The offenders were rarely discovered, and the workers attributed the incendiarism to a mythical person whom they named Swing. Men puzzled their brains to discover who this Swing could be, and whence this rage among the poor of the country districts. Of the great motive power, want, oppression, only a single person here and there thought, and certainly no one in the agricultural districts. Since that year the incendiarisms have been repeated every winter, with each recurring unemployed season of the agricultural labourers. In the winter of 1843–44, they were once more extraordinarily frequent. There lies before me a series of numbers of the Northern Star of that time, each one of which contains a report of several incendiarisms, stating in each case its authority. The numbers wanting in the following list I have not at hand, but they too, doubtless contain a number of cases. Moreover, such a sheet cannot possibly ascertain all the cases which occur. November 25, 1843, 2 cases, several earlier ones are discussed. December 16, in Bedfordshire, general excitement for a fortnight passed in consequence of frequent incendiarisms, of which several take place every night. 2 great farmhouses burnt down within the last few days. In Cambridgeshire 4 great farmhouses, Hertfordshire 1, and besides these, 15 other incendiarisms in different districts. December 30, in Norfolk 1, Suffolk 2, Essex 2, Cheshire 1, Lancashire 1, Derby, Lincoln, and the South 12. January 6, 1844, in all 10. January 13, 7. January 20, 4 incendiarisms. From this time forward, 3 or 4 incendiarisms per week are reported, and not as formally until the spring only, but far into July and August. And that crimes of this sort are expected to increase in the approaching hard season of 1844, 45, the English papers already indicate. What do my readers think of such a state of things in the quiet idyllic country districts of England? Is this social war, or is it not? Is it a natural state of things which can last? Yet here the landlords and farmers are as dull and stupefied, as blind to everything which does not directly put money into their pockets, as the manufacturers and the bourgeoisie in general in the manufacturing districts. If the latter promise their employees salvation through the repeal of the Corn Laws, the landlords and a great part of the farmers promised this heaven upon earth from the maintenance of the same laws. But in neither case do the property holders succeed in winning the workers to the support of their pet hobby. Like the operatives, the agricultural laborers are thoroughly indifferent to the repeal or non-repeal of the Corn Laws. Yet the question is an important one for both. That is to say, by the repeal of the Corn Laws, free competition, the present social economy is carried to its extreme point, all further development within the present order comes to an end, and the only possible step farther is a radical transformation of the social order. 268 For the agricultural laborers the question has, further, the following important bearing: free importation of corn involves how, I cannot explain here, the emancipation of the farmers from the landlords, their transformation into liberals. Towards this consummation the Anti-Corn Law League has already largely contributed, and this is its only real service. When the farmers become liberals, conscious bourgeois, the agricultural laborers will inevitably become Chartists and Socialists. The first change involves the second. And that a new movement is already beginning among the agricultural laborers, is proved by a meeting which Earl Radnor, a liberal landlord, caused to be held in October, 1844, near Highworth, where his estates lie, to pass resolutions against the Corn Laws. At this meeting, the laborers, perfectly indifferent as to these laws, demanded something wholly different, namely small holdings, at low rent, for themselves, telling Earl Radnor all sorts of bitter truths to his face. Thus the movement of the working classes finding its way into the remote, stationary, mentally dead agricultural districts, and, thanks to the general distress, will soon be as firmly rooted and energetic as in the manufacturing districts. 269 As to the religious state of the agricultural laborers, they are, it is true, more pious than the manufacturing operatives, but they too are greatly at odds with the church, for in these districts members of the established church almost exclusively are to be found. A correspondent of the Morning Chronicle, who, over the signature, "One who has whistled at the plough," reports his tour through the agricultural districts, relates, among other things, the following conversation with some labourers after service. I asked one of these people, whether the preacher of the day was their own clergyman. "Yes, blast him. He is our own parson, and begs the whole time. He's been always begging, as long as I've known him. The sermon had been upon a mission to the heathen. And as long as I've known him too," added another, "and I never knew a parson but what was begging for this or the other." "Yes," said a woman, who had just come out of the church, "and look how wages are going down, and see the rich vagabonds with whom the parsons eat, and drink and hunt. So help me God, we're more fit to starve in the workhouse than pay the parsons as go among the heathen." "And why," said another, "don't they send the parsons as drones every day in Salisbury Cathedral, for nobody but the bare stones? Why don't they go among the heathen?" "They don't go," said the old man whom I had first asked, "because they are rich, they have all the land they need, they want the money, in order to get rid of the poor parsons. I know what they want. I know them too long for that." "But, good friends," I asked, "you surely do not always come out of the church with such bitter feelings towards the preacher? Why do you go at all?" "What for do we go?" said the woman. "We must, if we do not want to lose everything, work and all, we must." I learned later, that they had certain little privileges of firewood and potato land which they paid for, on condition of going to church. After describing their poverty and ignorance, the correspondent closes by saying, "And now I boldly assert that the condition of these people, their poverty, their hatred of the church, their external submission and inward bitterness against the ecclesiastical dignitaries, is the rule among the country parishes of England, and its opposite is the exception. If the peasantry of England shows the consequences which a numerous agricultural proletariat in connection with large farming involves for the country districts, Wales illustrates the ruin of the smallholders. If the English country parishes reproduce the antagonism between capitalist and proletarian, the state of the Welsh peasantry corresponds to the progressive ruin of the small bourgeoisie in the towns. In Wales, are to be found, almost exclusively, smallholders,